This is Ron DeSantis on the left. He announced his presidential campaign on Twitter. It went terribly, but I wanted to give it a listen. Let's see what he had to say. This is not part one. If you haven't seen the others, don't sweat it. This stands independently of the rest. I'll provide context if it's missing. He's just kind of going through his whole propaganda shtick that he likes to do. So let's pull apart the propaganda that Ron DeSantis has to offer in his presidential announcement. And while we do, we're going to play some Breath of the Wild, too.
Let me shift gears here to the topic of education. I want to pull Chris Rufo into the conversation. I know he worked with you on some initiatives. I think, one other thing that the mainstream media has, I think, bashed on is they've kind of started promoting this narrative that you want to ban books from school libraries.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Ron DeSantis most definitely has an interest in banning books and stuff. There's no question about that. If you don't see that, then you just live in a delusion, straight up. I'm sorry.
You refuse to teach kids about slavery or other unpleasant realities of American history, or pretend that gay people don't exist.
Like, all of this is true. And no, I'm not complaining that he's pretending gay people don't exist. I'm complaining that he is actively hurting the gay community. He's doing things that are damaging and dangerous to the gay community. Psychotic, maybe. Psychotic might be the word I'm looking for, actually.
Since many people, I think, in this room, we're now up to, over 271,000 people. So this is, I think, totally unprecedented in terms of the numbers of people we have participating. By the way, I think Twitter's working much better now. I think it crashed because when you multiply 500,000 people in a room by an account with over 100 million followers, which is Elon's account, I think that creates.
Oh, this is funny. So the Twitter space that they created for this, audio only, by the way. Why did they think that was a good idea? To do an audio only Twitter space for his his presidential announcement. So he does an audio only Twitter announcement, and it crashed because Twitter is a train wreck. It wasn't always. But Elon Musk came in and wrecked it. That's their fault. Like, it's a mess now. There's no excuse for this, honestly. It's just fascinating to me that they come up with these ridiculous explanations and excuses for why really things are working well for us and we're really doing a fine job and things are great and it's really our political enemies that are at fault for everything wrong in our lives. It's just bizarre.
Just a scalability level that was unprecedented, but with my meager followership, it seems to be working much better.
It's we have some scaling issues specifically related to my account.
Sure, yeah. Keep telling yourself that it was totally the scaling issues as a result of your account. Absolutely, I believe it.
At one point in January, if I tweeted above a certain size, it would crash the servers.
Yeah.
Well, maybe firing 3/4 of the Twitter staff is what caused that problem. You ever consider that one? You ever knock that one around? Maybe this whole thing is actually your fault. The reason why Twitter is not functioning properly is your fault. Because you came in and f***ed everything up. No, it couldn't be that. Has to be some other ridiculous explanation.
And then anyone else who was tweeting at the same time would lose their tweet as well.
So in any event, yeah. Well, we're breaking new ground here.
We're scaling issues.
Yes, you're breaking new ground when there are bugs and scaling issues. But in any event, back to the question I was asking you, Governor DeSantis, about education.
Wow, what a fantastic way to twist this around and make it out as though Twitter being a train wreck is actually a good thing. Fantastic.
The media has been, saying you're trying to ban books. You refuse to teach kids about slavery. You want to say that gay people don't exist. What is the truth of the matter for people who maybe have never heard from you before? And then I want to pull Chris Rufo in on this as well.
Yeah, so the whole book ban thing is a hoax. There's not been a single book banned in the state of Florida. You can go buy or use whatever book you want.
Right. He hasn't banned books in Florida, but he has banned books in Florida classrooms and libraries, which, seems to me Isn't very free speech of him. Is it just me? I thought he was like a free speech warrior. What happened to that? You know what happened to it? He never was a free speech warrior. He never gave a shit about free speech. It was always about propagandizing and twisting things around and turning things into something that it's not. Making himself out to be like some kind of a victim or something. Absurd.
What we have done is empowered parents with the ability to review the curriculum, to know what books are being used in school, and then to ensure that those books match state standards and are age and developmentally appropriate. So,
yeah, that's simply inaccurate. That's an inaccurate depiction of what he actually did. You should see what Florida library shelves look like. As a matter of fact, I may actually show a picture of what they look like right now. It's deeply, deeply disturbing to see what DeSantis has done to Florida. And Florida is like a beautiful place, regardless of who's in charge right now. DeSantis keeps touting how many people are like signing or moving to Florida or whatever. It's not because he's the governor. That is a drawback for a lot of people, especially Donald Trump. I mean, Trump has been on this train, for like ever, talking about how he lives in Florida, not because of DeSantis, but despite DeSantis.
for example, parents have flagged books in schools that, for example, teach middle school kids how to use sex apps.
That's not what Ron DeSantis is doing, actually. He's not just banning... I mean, he said, I'm not banning books, and then he described how he's banning books. It's not just banning books that are full-blown pornographic. He's banning books that depict anything other than a straight, cis, white lifestyle, quote-unquote. I mean, I don't know what other word to use here. Anything that conflicts with his view of how society should operate. He bans a book about it. If there is a book about it, he bans it. From school libraries, from any library. It's deeply concerning to see.
Schools that, for example, teach middle school kids how to use sex apps, that provide
like, I don't even know what he's talking about, right? Is this even real?
graphic depictions of sex acts and sex toys for people as young as 5th grade. And so clearly that is not...
Wait, it's intended for people as young as 5th grade? What's he talking about here? Because he didn't just ban it for 5th graders. He banned it for everybody. This is nonsense. Oh my God, dude. I just died.
Not appropriate.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this is a really, really difficult game.
To be in a middle school classroom, and so parents object, and the schools take them out.
Parents object, and the schools take them out. So it's actually the parents' fault, not Ron's fault. It's the parents' fault. Fascinatingly, actually, if you just Google Ron DeSantis book ban, his quote-unquote debunk of this is at the top. His propaganda effort to rehabilitate his image is at the very top. That means he's doing SEO, search engine optimization, paying probably thousands of dollars a month, at least tens of thousands maybe, to get his links at the top of the Google searches. AP News is apparently next in line, though. Presidential hopeful DeSantis inspires push to make book bans easier in Republican-controlled states. What happened to freedom of speech? What happened to all that? They never cared about it.
I did a press conference that we called Exposing the Book Ban Hoax. And before I had the parents come up, before I spoke, I just played the video that had the images of the books that the parents had objected being in their kids' classroom. And the local news...
Wait, no, hold on. We're not talking about books in classrooms. We're talking about books in libraries, regular libraries. See how he twists it around and makes it out to be something other than what it is? He's trying his hardest to make it seem like he's more moderate than he actually is. He's just trying to remove pornographic material, books that contain pornographic material from 5th graders' classrooms. That's not what we're complaining about. That's not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about full-blown book bans in school districts. And by the way, it's really, the problem isn't just Ron DeSantis banning books. The problem is Ron DeSantis, as governor, setting a culture of book banning. They banned all books except for approved ones at one point. Really. In certain districts. Maybe not Ron DeSantis himself, but people have picked up on this culture. Other city councilmen and, I don't know, district leaders of various sorts have picked up on this culture of banning books in libraries, banning libraries from carrying certain things. And as a result, it's led to full-blown book bans in some districts. Did Ron DeSantis do them? Not technically. But he's got a bully pulpit. He has the ability to control what people are saying and thinking and doing as the governor. And he wants people to ban books that he doesn't like. And I'm talking really, really tame stuff. I'm talking 1984. That book is banned in one of the Florida districts. 1984. How can you morally justify banning a book like 1984, really?
Of the books that the parents had objected being in their kids' classroom, and the local news had to cut the feed because they said it was too graphic. Well, if it's too graphic for the 6 o'clock news, how is it okay for a sixth grader or a fifth grader? And so
nobody is saying that fifth graders or sixth graders should be reading pornographic material, but Ron DeSantis lies about the context or the contents of books and who those books are available to or who they're marketed to or whatever. Ron DeSantis is twisting it around. Like I said, they banned not Ron DeSantis specifically, but people in support of Ron DeSantis's positions, other city councilmen and stuff, banned the book 1984. No joke. How do you justify that? It's insane.
Nothing's being banned. They're basically ensuring that we make curation choices that are consistent with state standards. And on
curation choices. Right. Okay.
The racial history, we eliminated critical race theory from our K through 12 schools. That was the right thing to do. In other words, we're not going to take a kid who comes in at 6 years old and say they're an oppressor or oppressed based on what.
Nobody ever did that. This is a fabricated problem.
Their races. That's divisive. That's wrong. We're also not going to be teaching people to hate their country. But
no one ever did any of that stuff. But if you notice, contained within the bills that Ron DeSantis passed to prevent this stuff from happening, supposedly, contained within those bills were subsections designed to take it an additional step, to go even further. You can't just leave it at removing books. I mean, you shouldn't be banning books anyways, period. You can't just... Wait, who just killed me? Did that boss bokoblin just kill me? Holy shit, dude. This is really, really hard. This is a hard game. Anyways, you can't just leave it at banning the things that you're talking about. You have to take it that extra step. You have to be that much more extreme. Shouldn't be banning books, period. Certainly not in libraries like that.
We are going to do is teach the accurate history. So in the same bill that banned critical race theory, we required teaching thoroughly about racial discrimination that occurred in American history. And Florida's history standards require all of those subjects from slavery, Reconstruction, segregation, all of that to be taught, and we'll continue to do that. So I think what you see is the left and the media colluding on this. They don't want to actually defend what...
No, just completely made up, like all of it. He is setting out to rehabilitate his image when his image is just trash over the book banning stuff. I don't have to say a word about this. Let Glenn Beck describe what's wrong with this situation. When the Dr. Seuss thing was happening, you know, Dr. Seuss ceased publishing some of their books. A decision made for a company by the company owners just because the company wanted to. Glenn Beck came out of the woodwork and lost it.
they are banning Dr. Seuss books.
They weren't, but okay.
How much more do you need to see before all of America wakes up and goes, this is fascism?
Isn't that fascinating?
This is fascism. You don't destroy books. What is wrong with us, America?
Absolutely. But it's so funny that he's talking about Democrats supposedly banning books when they were not, rather than Republicans actually banning books. This is actually happening on the Republican side. He hasn't said a word about Ron DeSantis banning books as he was doing. But he throws a fit about it if he believes that Democrats are doing it incorrectly.
That we are actually legislating or regulating, so they create these hoaxes that somehow you don't want kids to learn that slavery existed in America, which is preposterous. No one actually defends the offending material. And the question is
that's because that's not actually the offending material. This is fabricated. It's made up. This isn't happening. There isn't a rash of people trying to push, sexual material on children. If he actually represented it fairly, it would be a different discussion, but he's not. God, this drilling is driving me insane.
Why are there people intent on trying to get this stuff into the classroom? And I think it's part of a political agenda. So
this is just not happening. This is just fabricated.
Our mantra in Florida is this: purpose of the schools is education, not indoctrination. Yes, I think it's very inappropriate to have sexually explicit material in a fifth grade library, 100%. But it's also the case that if you're focusing on that type of instruction, there's an opportunity cost involved. Why shouldn't we be doing more on science or reading or math? And so I think we're getting it right. And I think almost invariably, and Chris Rufo's had to deal with this too, when they're trying to craft these narratives, you just peel back the onion, you realize that this is something they're manufacturing.
So that's, oh my, are you kidding me? I died again? Dude, I'm telling you, this game is so ridiculously difficult. A good thing I saved a few minutes ago. I saved so I won't appear at the shrine again. Anyways, it's because they removed a lot of like the healing items and stuff that existed in Breath of the Wild. Oh, just dead silence. Okay.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean,
no, it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's garbage.
I was actually under the impression that there were some books banned, so this is news to me.
Yeah, no, there were a ton of books banned. Did Ron DeSantis directly do the book banning? Not necessarily, but he did set the culture, and he did ban some books, for what it's worth.
And there was the one this week was that Miami-Dade County took a book that was about like poems from I think like Biden's inauguration, and they moved it from elementary school library to middle school library. The media tried to act like somehow this is being banned, and you actually had Miami-Dade County Public School.
Well, I mean, it is being banned, isn't it? From certain libraries? That's what he's doing. He's banning it from certain libraries. Am I wrong here? Am I misunderstanding?
Schools spokesperson have to come out and say there's nothing that's been banned or removed. It was basically just determined that this particular book was better suited for middle school.
Well, they banned books. That's what they were doing. They were banning books. Now, it's debatable about whether or not that book should be banned. I don't have any idea. But that's what they were doing. I mean, I don't know how you can see it any other way. Oh my God, this is dangerous. This is dangerous. This is dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Okay, got him. That made the situation a lot easier. Oh God. He lit his club on fire. That's bad. Okay, we're good. We're good. I don't think I'm gonna die again.
And so they put it in the middle school media center, and the media tries to act like somehow that is offending something with a book ban. So, but I think part of the reason that they're doing that is because there is actually a movement to ban books from like Amazon and some of these others. California, some municipalities have banned things like To Kill a Mockingbird. What they're trying to do is see if some of these books pass a woke test. And if they don't...
Right, woke test. So it's actually the other guys that are doing it. Totally.
They are going against some of those books. Whereas in Florida, you can buy whatever book you want. But that's a different question than what would be appropriate for a third grader or what would be appropriate for a sixth grader. Government, by definition, has to make those choices about what type of curriculum we want to put in front of our students. And the
Wow. Really expertly done. Expertly propagandized. Expertly crafted. The way that he lied about what was available and what he's doing and all of that stuff. Fascinating, right?
Parents obviously have an important voice in that.
Absolutely. Well, in fact, a friend of mine, Tim Urban, who has a blog called Wait But Why, and is really one of the most reasonable people on earth and one of the most reasoned people I've ever met, had a lot of trouble actually publishing his book, simply because it debated sort of sacred cows of woke ideology.
Wow, sacred cows. That's actually really interesting that he used that phrase, because that is very much a phrase used by atheists, like, a lot. It's a phrase that, India famously protects cows, and it's kind of like to a ridiculous extent. Like, you can't touch a cow practically without getting in trouble for it in India because they believe that cows are sacred. And the claim that, the whole sacred cow thing is very much used as it's used to make a point in the atheist community frequently. So I find it really interesting that he even mentioned sacred cows like that. But okay.
But an incredibly reasonable book. So that is the kind of de facto book banning and de facto book suppression that I see quite a lot of, is that publishers are unwilling to take risks.
Okay, so that's not book banning. That's just people choosing not to publish your book. That's their right to not do if they don't want to.
Let me shift gears here for a second because I know we're running out of time. We're supposed to end, I think, around 4 Pacific. But thank you for giving us a little bit of extra time here, Governor. Shifting gears to a major federal issue, immigration. We see I've seen these videos on social media and on TV of what looks like just insanity at the border. What is your
Oh God, they want to talk about the border now.
take on what's going on there, and how would you address that as president?
Well, I'd reverse what Biden's doing. You need to shut the border down.
Okay, the border is no more open now than it was before under Trump. It's exactly the same under Trump as it was under Biden, practically. Very few policy differences. But they think that this wins them votes to talk about how bad the border is, and they might be right about that. But it's all propagandistic nonsense, every last bit of it.
You should not be entertaining these asylum claims for people crossing illegally.
Oh, this is fascinating. Asylum claim. So there's a difference between an immigrant and a refugee. Okay, this distinction is more nuanced than most people probably need to be aware of in their everyday life. But a refugee is somebody that's escaping a war-torn area. There's somebody that is under threat of dying if they go back to their home country. There are a billion different countries out there that are very dangerous, punishing political dissidents, just war-torn and destroyed. In South America and Central America, there are some. Any country registered as a certain type of country with the UN has to allow refugees who are escaping political persecution or whatever, they have to allow them to the nearest refugee center in the country to request asylum. And the United States has a political, or has a refugee center in Texas. And the people on the border have been like trolling that area in between the border, the refugee center, and the border, in an effort to catch refugees, to prevent them from like reaching safety. Basically, honestly, disgusting behavior to do something like that. But that's what they were talking about just now. That's what that was all about. That's what they're referencing when they say, people requesting asylum or whatever. They're talking about people from war-torn areas that are barely surviving in the first place. They're not talking about immigrants who just want to come here just because they hate America and want to ruin it or whatever. Insane.
You should not be entertaining these asylum claims for people crossing illegally.
But you still have to allow them to the refugee center to request the asylum claim legally, according to the United Nations. International law, you must. And the United States has not been. They've been stopping them before they can even reach it.
Asylum is a legitimate thing, but these are people that when they come, they're being persecuted. These people coming overwhelmingly are economic migrants that are coming across many other different countries. They should.
Okay, well, you're talking about asylum seekers specifically. You're talking about refugees that are from war-torn areas. That's what he just said. We shouldn't entertain asylum. Asylum is for people who are escaping war-torn areas, not just like, seasonal migrants. And by the way, it's valuable to the U.S. economy to have economic migrants anyways. So I don't know what he's complaining about.
Should be applying for asylum there if they were, truly qualifying for that, but they're not. They know that if they just show up at the southern border, and these are people all over the world that are coming illegally, they know that they will get a sheet of paper saying, okay, come back for a court date in 3 years, and they get released to the interior of our country. It's
ridiculous. This is not how it works.
It's an absolutely insane system. So we'll stop that.
He's just propagandizing now.
We will move on day one by declaring a national emergency. We will construct a border wall. We will make sure we have remain in Mexico and that we're not entertaining those claims in that way. And we really need to hold the Mexican drug cartels accountable because they're facilitating a lot of this migration. They obviously make money off of it. They treat a lot of these people very horribly.
Just completely made up, all of it.
As they're trafficking them through.
Like the cartel is trafficking people into the U.S. that are apparently of different nationalities so that they can hurt the United States. Like, what the fuck are you talking about right now? None of this is true. None of this makes any sense. Complete garbage, like all of it. Insane.
Through Mexico and into the United States. And of course, the cartels have been responsible for moving massive amounts of fentanyl into this country. And that's killing tens of thousands of Americans every year now. And what they're doing is they lace the other types of drugs with the fentanyl.
Fentanyl is not coming through the cartel or through the border, to my knowledge. Not much. I mean, there is some coming from the border, a little bit. But to my knowledge, I believe that fentanyl is coming from Canada largely. I could be completely wrong on this, so don't trust my word. But a lot of fentanyl has been caught at the border, like a lot.
So you may have like a teenage kid doing something they probably shouldn't do, but in prior generations would not have been fatal. And now if it's laced with fentanyl, these kids can overdose and die. And so mothers are...
Why would anybody lace like weed with fentanyl and then sell it to some kid? That is ridiculous.
We're losing kids as a result of this fentanyl epidemic, and I just don't think you could allow these criminal organizations to continue poisoning our population. So it'll be a day one issue.
So he thinks that fentanyl is coming over the border, and if he closes the border, which it's already closed, but I guess if he closes it even more or whatever, fentanyl just won't be a problem in the U.S. anymore. We just move on with our lives. What?
We will bring overwhelming amount of resources to deal with it, and we are going to stop this insanity once and for all.
Wow. So his solution to the fentanyl problem is close the border. It's already closed. How much more can you close it? My brother got weed that was laced, and it messed him up really bad. Took his own life in 2020. I'm very sorry to hear that your brother took his own life. Drug dealers don't just lace things with other things without telling somebody. You know why? Because they make their money off of that stuff. Why would somebody who wants to make money off of fentanyl sell it for free or just give it away in weed? That doesn't really make any sense.
There's a, I think, follow-up question on immigration from Steve Dace, who is a national radio personality. And
Steve Deese. His name is Deese. And yeah, he's absolutely insane, this guy is. Okay, interesting. I didn't realize Steve Deese was on the call. Okay, let's see what he says.
From Steve Dace, who is a national radio personality and I think an important commentator in the great state of Iowa. Steve, do you have a comment or question? I think you just need to unmute.
Dude, okay, let me show you what Steve Deese has said in the past since we're bringing this up. Hold on. Oh, this guy is nuts. This is a good one. Okay, this one is from late September 2023. Listen to this is Steve Deese. This is who is about to ask Desantis a question, right?
We all, I think, understand. And if you don't worry. I'm going to keep leaning on you until you get there. We all, I think, by now understand the old model of going to a happy-go-lucky church, watching Fox News all week long in between, and then being the silent majority and voting for the red wave to save us.
By the way, look at his cup. He's got a picture of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and next to the picture, a cup that says, couldn't have overturned Roe v. Wade without her. He's celebrating her death. That's sick, dude.
Is a relic of a bygone era and won't cut it.
Wow, that's a long pause. Okay.
It doesn't matter which rhino you decide to vote for Congress. They're teabagging your kids at the public library down the street with drag queens. We're beyond.
I'm sorry, what was that? Hold on, let me just step back. Listen again.
Or which rhino you decide to vote for Congress. They're teabagging your kids at the public library down the street with drag queens.
Wow, we went from 0 to 100 there. I'm just very confused by that. Very lost, very confused. Who's doing this and why and to whose kids exactly? This is just unhinged from reality entirely. These people, like Steve Deese specifically, are nuts. The people on the call with Ron DeSantis are nuts. So let's listen to Deese give us his political analysis and ask DeSantis a question here. Long pause. I'm playing it. We're waiting for them to talk.
If Steve can
waiting for Steve Deese to unmute,
then we'll go ahead and ask him for a question. If not, we'll keep rolling here.
Keep on rolling, baby.
All right, 3, 2, going, gone.
I'm there,
all right,
guys.
sorry, Steve.
I'm there, guys.
Oh,
Sorry.
there you
There
go.
he is.
All right.
Yeah, my bad. First of all, I want to echo what Congressman Massey said to Elon. Elon, if I put down money on January 1st, 2022, that Twitter was going to be the last bastion of free speech on earth, brother, I'd be about as rich as you are on that bet right now. I mean, it's...
Wow. Twitter is the last bastion of free speech? Is that what he said?
It's incredible what you have done here, and the restoration of a lot of accounts of people that were truth tellers and were ran from here for telling the truth. I saw a meme the other day that said, of course you have scientific consensus when you censor all the scientists who disagree. So I wanted...
They didn't do that, though. That's the thing. It wasn't like, 80, 90, 95% of scientists were saying the entire time COVID is made in a lab and it's fake and that, the vaccine is evil and all that stuff. That's not what was happening. It's the same with climate change. They weren't saying climate change isn't real. There's still like 90-something% of scientists say that climate change is man-made and real and caused by human beings. If you don't accept that, fine. It's not because people aren't, or it's not because people are being censored. It's because you don't accept it.
I wanted to just say first and foremost, on behalf of a lot of grateful people around the country and the world, really, thank you very much for that and the investment you made in that cause. Thank you. A question as a follow-up to you, Governor, on this very issue with immigration. We have heard a lot over the years, lock her up, drain the swamp, going to build a beautiful wall, Mexico's going to pay for it, and crowds cheered, and everybody loved it, and brands got built, and nothing got done.
That's an interesting point. I guess he's soured on Donald Trump, huh? Yeah, Trump made a lot of promises and didn't fulfill basically any of them. Interesting point.
What is the bottom line assurance that you can make to the people that are listening right now, all over the world and all over the country, that you can actually do the agenda that you just articulated when others tweeted about it and talked about it, but then couldn't actually follow through?
It's a great question because I share that frustration. I think even my worst critics in Florida will acknowledge when I tell people I'm going to do something, I don't make promises or say I'm going to do something lightly. I've thought it through, and I know that I am going to follow through on what I tell people I'm going to do. So this is one.
So you tell me I can't find a single false promise from Ron DeSantis? I can't find a single thing that he's said that he didn't do? Okay. I'll keep that in the back of my head.
Be follow through. Number two, I understand the different leverage points that you would have under Article 2 of the Constitution. I studied that a lot at becoming governor about Florida's Constitution, doing the same thing for the federal Constitution. And you've got to know how to use your leverage to advance what you're trying to accomplish. So, for example, there's leverage that we can use vis-a-vis Mexico that I think presidents have not been willing to do. I think sometimes for political purposes. But I'll look at, okay, what are all the...
wow, we're not going to do this to Mexico, sometimes for political purposes, i.e., we're not going to destroy, like, one of our trading partners, one of our biggest trading partners. We're not going to destroy the relationship between us. But I'm willing to. I'm okay with destroying the relationship with Mexico. Genius.
Variety of options we can do. Which buttons can I push? And I will do that to be able to bring this issue to a conclusion once and for all. We had Hurricane Ian come through Southwest Florida, Category 4 plus storm, September of 2022, and it did a lot of damage. But one of the things it did, it knocked out a bridge going from the mainland to Pine Island, and it severed the Sanibel Causeway in 3 different locations. And the locals were being told it's going to take 6 months to get that stuff repaired. And so they came to me, even though these were not state-owned bridges, and they said, can you help us? And I said, okay, I'll do it. So I got my...
So he's describing a political situation that he worked on? Okay.
My guys together, I said, listen, no bureaucracy, no red tape, and no excuses. Get it done. We need to open these bridges back. Pine Island Bridge reopened 3 days later. Sanibel Causeway opened 2 weeks after that. Way ahead of schedule.
You going to explain how you did that, or are you just going to claim credit for something?
Because we wouldn't take no for an answer, and we wanted to make sure we got it done. So for me, it is not a campaign.
Oh, so he's just not going to explain how he did it, how he was the one that solved this problem. Okay.
Slogan that you get in and then forget about it. I'm, as an American citizen, if I wasn't running, this would be an issue that bothers me. I've put a lot of my capital as Florida governor involved in combating illegal immigration. We banned sanctuary cities my first year. We just did a strong anti-illegal immigration bill in Florida that's working. I've put marine assets in the Florida Keys to help the Coast Guard repel boats from places like Haiti. I have people at the southern border right now helping Texas, and we've even been able to relocate illegal aliens to places like...
Wait, are you... Okay, hold on a second. Are you trying to tell me that you're wasting Floridians' money on things that, like, Texas and the U.S. government, like the federal government, should be doing? You're burning through the money that they pay? I mean, I guess there's no state tax because Florida has tourism, so... Still, I mean, this is public money. there's still some tax in Florida, just not state tax.
Like Martha's Vineyard. So I don't think any governor has probably gone out of his way to do more to try to make an impact on this issue. And I'm not going to take no for an answer. And I think our voters are sick of the empty promises. They want to see action.
Thank you, Governor.
Well, Governor.
Wow. Okay. So he told us that he did something, but didn't tell us how or why or when or anything about the situation that we could look it up or whatever, I suppose.
I saw the cover of Time Magazine this week, and I think they were trying to do a negative story because they had you were sort of scowling in this portrait they made of you, and in the article they call you they compared you to the Terminator, and I think they meant insult, but I thought it was kind of cool. I thought it was a good thing because
okay, I don't know what they're talking about right now.
I think we need a cool-headed, ruthless assassin to go in and basically take on the woke mob, take on our out-of-control government, and take on problems like the ones at the border. So, again, I thought it made you sound great, even though that may not have been their intention.
Well, look, at the end of the day, this whole business that we're in is about producing results. I don't care about fanfare. I'm the governor.
Totally. That's why you're holding this public event right now in such a public way, because you don't care about fanfare and stuff, right? Okay.
That is, I'm known, right? And I go around the state and everything, and people are very nice. And so, I appreciate the well wishes, but I don't need any of the fanfare. I don't need any adulation. I just know I'm in a position where I have a chance to make a difference, and I'm either doing it or I'm not. And I remember sitting at the desk in the state capitol my first day as governor 4.5 years ago. I looked around the room and I thought to myself, I don't know what SOB is going to succeed me in this chair, but they are not going to have anything to do because I'm getting all the meat off the bone. I am going to make sure that I'm leaning into issues. And
yeah, what I find interesting about Ron DeSantis is the fact that he had the opportunity to do all of these things that he's doing right now 6.5 years ago, as he says, whenever he took the governorship, right? Why didn't he make it easier for juries to get the death penalty for people 6 years ago? Why didn't he ban all of the books that he's banning 6 years ago? Why didn't he do all of this back then? It's a slow drip. It's so that he stays in the news cycle. He's doing the exact same thing that Donald Trump does. Only I don't think he does it as well as Donald Trump. I guess we'll see. He doesn't seem to be, but he is staying in the news, and that's the key to all of this.
And making an impact. And we have done that in the state of Florida, and I bring that exact attitude up to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Governor, I'd love to jump in and follow up on that. This is Chris Rufo, and I've had the honor of working with you in the past few years on critical race theory, gender ideology, and the DEI bureaucracy. And what I've seen up close and personal is that while many conservative politicians going back decades have made headlines and got on television playing culture war, they never actually get anything done. And what you've done over the last few years is...
Wait, who plays culture war on TV, if not Republican governors and Republican, operatives or whatever?
Really astonishing. You've eliminated CRT from all Florida's public institutions. You've stopped gender ideology dead in its tracks in K through 12. And
wow, just love this guy a little bit harder, will you? It's not obvious yet. I need to see a little bit more to know if you like him or not. I'm trying to say it in a polite way.
Just last week, you eliminated the DEI bureaucracy in all of Florida's public universities. They'll be shut down completely. And I think what you've done is established a blueprint for fighting back against the left's long march of the institutions and making sure that those institutions reflect the value of Florida voters, not left-wing activists and the partisan press. So my question for you is, D.C. is another animal. It's quite different, the scale of the federal government. And how are you going to deliver results? And what is your culture war strategy facing down the swamp in D.C.?
What is your culture war strategy?
Well, some of it is similar in this respect. When we're taking on things like DEI, you get blowback from legacy media and the far left. But that's an example of an issue where they are out of step with the vast majority of Americans. It's not just Republicans. It's independents and a lot of Democrats, because you think about if you're a parent and you've got kids, you want to know when they apply to college, they're going to be judged based on their merit, and they're not going to be roadkill in some type of woke Olympics.
Well, this is actually really interesting. What he's doing right now is directly quoting the KKK. The Grand Wizard of the KKK famously said almost this exact thing back in 1982. I covered an interview that the KKK Grand Wizard gave to a CNN reporter. It's on my channel. If you just search for KKK Grand Wizard, it'll turn right up for you. But it's fascinating to me that he is using the exact same propaganda right now. Isn't that something?
Where they didn't fit some category, and so they're denied opportunity. They want to make sure that achievement matters. And so we get a lot of quiet support for a lot of those things. And so I think what I do, just because, look, I'm a blue collar kid. I grew up in the Tampa Bay area, working minimum wage to get through school.
I bet. Totally. And he went to Harvard. No, he's not one of those blue collar kids. He is an elite. He's desperate to convince people, like Trump, somehow, he's just some guy, some common dude, just like everybody else. He's not. Neither is Trump. I honestly have no idea how he got that impression. Or how he got that reputation, I mean.
My grandfather worked in the steel mill in Western Pennsylvania. I just know instinctively kind of what like normal people think about all this stuff. And I have a good sense of when the legacy media and the left are outside of where the average American is, because people want you to be using common sense. And things like DEI, I mean, when I...
Okay, if you're not familiar with DEI, it's the new CRT. It's just diversity and inclusion, or diversity, equity, and inclusion is what it stands for. And it's basically a department that every company has to have over a certain size so that they comply with, legal requirements. They're not legally allowed to discriminate in hiring practices and stuff. This is just like a legal department that companies are supposed to have. I can't believe like they're pretending that this is like some evil thing. Well, I can believe it. How the hell do I get into that tower? I don't even remember now. I got into it before. There's some cave around, I think. I'm walking away from it now. Okay. I'll find this cave.
I was growing up, I think things were better because people were actually told you should try to get along.
Wait, I missed the cave? Is it behind me? Do I go back? Or do I go forward? You know what? I'm just going to look it up.
Now, they're told you need to segregate. And it's just crazy that they're trying to do all this stuff. So,
dude, no one is saying that segregation is a good thing. You live in a fantasy. Well, I mean, Republicans are saying it. Let me rephrase. Democrats and people to the left of hunting the homeless for sport are not saying that segregation is a good thing.
By eliminating that, there's a lot of people that were really happy about that, including people that certainly are not traditional Republicans. And I think there's similar issues when you do in the federal level. It's also the case that there are some tools at the federal level that we don't necessarily have at the state level. For example, some of the problems with the university and the ideological capture, that didn't happen by accident, can trace back all the way to the accreditation cartels. Well, guess what?
Accreditation cartels, he says. They're cartels now, apparently. Wow. People who give accreditation are cartels. That is something, dude.
To become an accreditor, how do you do that? You've got to get approved by the U.S. Department of Education. So we're going to be doing alternative accreditation regimes where instead of saying you will only get accredited if you do DEI, you'll have an accreditor that will say, we will not accredit you if you do DEI. We want a colorblind, merit-based accreditation scheme. And
see how this works? Seriously, okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to, not stop every 15 seconds, but I have to. I have to talk about, I have to show you the KKK Grand Wizard saying the exact same thing. I must. 1982, November 4th, 1982, with a CNN reporter. Listen to this. This is a Grand Wizard of the KKK. The guy led the KKK at the time. He was the leader of the entire movement. Here it is.
We feel that...
All right, listen to this.
To finish what I was saying, we feel that affirmative action is discriminating against white people. And there is no question about it. Two wrongs don't make a right. Because black people were hurt and discriminated against in the past does not justify the discrimination against white people now.
Okay, white people aren't being discriminated against. They were not being discriminated against all the way back then either. But that's how the KKK framed it. You know why? Because it appealed to moderates. That's always been the goal, to appeal to moderates, to make them feel like they're the persecuted ones. 1982. And we're hearing this stuff right out of the mouth of Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump, both. They are the modern version of the KKK, really.
If you do DEI, we want a colorblind, merit-based accreditation scheme. And so as president, controlling that agency, you can then approve other types of accreditation. So I think part of it is just knowing where are all the pressure points? How does it get to the point that we then see and that somebody like you will run a report on? Like when you see some of the outrageous stuff that's generated in some sociology department at a university, that didn't just happen out of thin air. There's a reason why we got to that point. And I think that there are some tools with the federal government where you can push back and try to get these institutions moored in a more...
So he's saying he's going to use the federal government to expand its power and push on businesses to regulate. Is that what he's saying? More regulation, bigger U.S. government? That's what it sounds like to me, right? Is that a garden gnome? I didn't notice. Was there a garden gnome? Oh, you're talking about the KKK? Well, the hood, it wasn't used by the KKK originally. I think it was used by the Catholic Church originally, and it's still used in some of their rituals or whatever. Some Easter parade or something. It's intended to obscure height. It's for anonymity. It's to make it harder to tell who somebody is, fascinatingly.
More foundational direction about, hey, we're pursuing truth here, and we're not here to try to impose one niche ideology on the entire student body.
So God, isn't that fascinating? He says, we are not here to enforce an ideology. We're just here to erase some ideologies. Well, that's effectively what you're doing. When you're trying to, when you're meddling with what colleges are allowed to talk about in the classroom, when you're banning books and stuff like that, you are erasing people's rights to say and do and think what they want.
Great. Shifting gears. Dana Lash, you have a question or comment for the governor?
I do. And thank you both so much for your time, for joining us in a very new way. I really appreciate that. I think it's really cool.
In a new way, which is to say on Twitter. Really cool, she says. Okay. I mean, it was a bad idea. It was a terrible idea for his governorship or whatever, for his campaign.
And for your support of free speech, too. And Elon, I have to say
wow, I didn't think, honestly, I would ever hear somebody thank Ron DeSantis for his support of free speech. Honestly, that didn't seem like something that he stood up for. It seems like he stands against freedom of speech, right? Clear as day.
Thank you for taking the arrows and for unthrottling the accounts of all of us who got in trouble for sharing a New York Post story about a laptop. And Governor, I wanted to thank...
Oh my God, nobody got in trouble for talking about the Hunter Biden story. New York Post had it removed for one day, the post that they put out about Hunter Biden's laptop, and it was reinstated the following day. They live in a fantasy where they're discriminated against and persecuted and attacked 24/7. It's insane.
I wanted to thank you for your leadership and your unwavering support of Second Amendment rights. And you're on my program tomorrow, and I just got to say, you got my vote in the primary, so I appreciate it very much. You were talking about DEI just a minute ago, and I want to ask you both about...
Again, if you don't know, Department of Equity and Inclusion. It's just like a legal department for most companies that they have to have to make sure they're not discriminating against people.
this growing threat against natural rights and free enterprise. It's this threat of debanking. Now, I know that, Elon, I've read so much about you and what you've gone through. You've called ESG criteria evil incarnate. Governor Desantis.
Just equity and inclusion is evil incarnate. You know what? I'm not surprised. I expected to hear that from somebody who grew up rich in apartheid South Africa. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Florida saw financially weaponized wokery earlier this year when Wells Fargo Bank dumped both the business and personal accounts of a very prominent and well-respected gun dealer in Florida.
Ooh, wokery. That's a new one.
Been together for 25 years working with Wells Fargo, and they cited new ESG guidelines. Now, similar to the DOJ's previous Operation Choke Point, all these activists for various causes are using this regulatory guidance to debank what they consider to be politically incorrect businesses for the sake of risk management.
Okay, well, if banks choose not to, affiliate themselves with somebody like Mike Lindell, Mike Lindell's bank definitely dropped him. That's their choice. This is private companies making private choices for their companies. Are you serious? You want more regulation?
Now, we say that our rights should not be infringed upon by the government, but what can and should be done about activist-guided financial institutions and these payment processors who are essentially cutting off law-abiding citizens and businesses?
Okay, they're not payment processors. She's using the word incorrectly there. They are, at best, banks are not payment processors, but what's the word? It's, oh my God, I can't remember what the term is for this. Banks do process payments for people. That's true. But that's not their sole purpose. That's not all they do. And there are lots and lots of people out there that will process payments for you. You don't have to use, in fact, you can't use a bank to process payments in a lot of cases.
Well, I think it's a fundamental issue that I think not enough conservatives have been wise to. I think more and more are. But at the end of the day, we have certain fundamental rights. And so maybe you're somebody that is really excited about your Second Amendment rights. And obviously, if the government comes in and infringes that, we know you blow the whistle on that. That's a problem. But what if Wall Street banks are colluding so that somebody can't function in that space, whether it's running a store or anything involving that? Your rights are still being infringed upon in that situation. And so I think this whole ESG movement is really trying to do through.
Yeah, I don't know what ESG is. They keep mentioning it, but I'm sure it's something like DEI, right? It's some normal thing that people normally do, and they're blowing it out of proportion like it's this big evil thing.
The financial sector, what they could never achieve through the ballot box. And so they're trying to do an end run around the constitutional system, and they're really trying to change policy. They're trying to change society. And they're trying to change the scope of people's rights. And so
who is they? Are they in the room with us right now?
In Florida, I just signed anti-ESG legislation, which said things like no ESG criteria in our pension fund. We got a $180 billion state pension fund. No social credit scores for consumers when they're...
Is anybody trying to push social credit scores?
Going to bank. In other words, if you apply for a loan, that loan should be judged based on your creditworthiness, not whether you're genuflecting to the appropriate left-wing causes. But
what is he talking about? Social credit scores. Has anybody tried to make social credit scores a thing in the U.S.? Has anyone talked about this in any serious way? No, of course not.
One thing we did do is we did provide protection against this debanking with the woke banking. No discrimination based on your religion and other things.
Good. So you have increased the discrimination protections. I'm all for it. That's what DEI is for in the first place. Discrimination protection. It's good when it works for them, like hiring only white people, but bad when it works against them, like having to not discriminate against people, like when you're legally required to hire a certain number of black employees because your entire company is white.
Which we,
you know what the KKK was complaining about, however long ago. like 40, 50 years.
We know is happening. So I think it's a fundamental question, but we will not be a free society if major financial institutions can do through the economy what people could not achieve through the ballot box. Our rights will be restricted, will be the end result, and that's not healthy for a free country.
As a follow-up to that, Governor, Dana mentioned Operation Choke Point, and that is a term that's
Operation Choke Point.
very familiar to crypto companies in Silicon Valley and fintech companies. Basically, it refers to an effort by the federal government, including the SEC, to basically regulate blockchain and crypto companies out of existence. They really...
Oh my God, dude. We have a crypto bro on here who's upset that crypto might face the same regulations that banks face to prevent people from being scammed. And he's mad that he's facing those regulations. Isn't that interesting?
Really feel like they're being driven out of the country. And I'm not talking about scammy ones or the totally fake ones. Like,
then you should have no problem with regulation if you're not talking about the scammy ones, right? You think crypto regulation is hurting crypto, really? I mean, in the strictest sense, I suppose, to some degree, because there are a lot of people that operate off of scamming people nearly exclusively in the crypto market. So I guess regulating crypto would hurt it a little bit because you've got those people who exclusively exist to scam others. But if you're afraid of like basic regulations to protect consumers, you're probably the scam artist.
Like FTX, but really high quality, good companies, including companies that are public, like Coinbase. And these guys are basically begging the government for just a framework. They're just like, tell us how to operate legally and we'll do it. I guess where do you come down on this? What is your view, I guess, broadly of Bitcoin and people's right?
Dude, nobody, I don't know what this guy is talking about. This is like weird and confusing, but there's no crypto company out there who doesn't know how to operate. Who's like, just tell us how to operate and we'll do it to the government. What? The hell are you talking about? How do people talk about freedom when all they're doing is taking away other people's rights and books, etc.? The hypocrisy is unbearable. Oh, I know. Absolutely agreed. Absolutely agreed. It's absurd. Anyway, yeah, let's keep listening here. Oh, Phoenix the Fall, thank you for the sub. I appreciate that. And Black Hudson 1, thank you for the sub. I'm not sure I mentioned or not.
To hold Bitcoin and to transact Bitcoin.
And Dogecoin.
You have every right to do Bitcoin. The only reason these people in Washington don't like it is because they don't control it. And they're central planners, and they want to have control over society. And so Bitcoin represents a threat to them.
Dude, this is just sad. So I guess this is DeSantis promoting Bitcoin effectively, or signaling that he's not going to cause problems for Bitcoin. He's going to make things easier for them, for anybody that runs a Bitcoin company. Disgusting.
And so, as you're saying, they're trying to regulate it out of existence. Look,
No. It's perfectly free to exist, as long as it's not scamming people.
Congress enact a statute to ban things like Bitcoin under the Constitution? They may be able to do. I would oppose that. I think people should be able to do Bitcoin. But Congress has never addressed this in this fashion. And for the bureaucracy to just do it on their own and make it so people can't operate in that space, that's what we mean when we say we've got to return the government to the people's elected representatives who are our voice to be able to make these decisions. And so as president, we'll protect the ability to do things like Bitcoin. I think these are people that are sophisticated. They can make decisions. There's risks involved with it, but let them do that. I just do not have an itch to have to control everything that people may be doing in this.
Well, you could have fooled me. You don't have an itch to control everything people are doing? Honestly, news to me.
Space, and I think that the current...
Oh, I'm sorry, I got more specific. Everything people are doing in this space. Yeah, my mistake. You got to get a little more specific. He is interested in controlling what people are doing in other spaces.
Regime, clearly, they have it out for Bitcoin, and if it continues for another 4 years, they'll probably end up killing it.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that is the strong feeling of people in Silicon Valley who are in this space, and I think we'll be heartened to hear your answer on that. I mean, the weird thing is that, and there is a huge constituency of crypto Twitter. So for people who are maybe part of political Twitter who are wondering why we're talking about this, it really has a big audience for this topic.
Dogecoin too, I just want to emphasize. It's a big deal.
Oh my God, of course Elon mentions Dogecoin. Of course he does.
Yeah. Bitcoin and Dogecoin. So shout out to all the Doge fans out there.
So stupid.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is that this administration, they seem to want to ban Bitcoin, but they want to create a CBDC, which stands for a central bank digital currency.
Wait, according to who? Who did you hear that from? The U.S. government wants to create a central bank digital currency? I haven't heard a word about that.
What's your take on that?
So we were the first state just last month. We actually got the Florida legislature to pass a law that says Florida does not recognize central bank digital currency, because some states were actually adding that to their uniform commercial code.
Who? Specifically, tell me who. Who was adding that to their uniform criminal code or whatever? Give me names, specifics. This is made up. There was a conspiracy theory, like forever ago, that the U.S. government was attempting to create a digital currency. It's fabricated.
The federal government's studying this. We did the opposite and say we didn't. Now, the reason why we did that is because what the Federal Reserve has said is, well, we're going to consult with Congress. We'll consult with the executive branch. We don't have a CBDC right now. And ideally, we would get authorization.
CBDC being the central bank digital currency. So cryptocurrency controlled by the U.S. government, the Fed.
For Congress. Well, wait a minute. It's not ideally. You must get authorization from Congress. I don't think Congress would authorize it. So if they unilaterally try to do this, we're trying to provide protection for people here in Florida. I know Biden did the executive order. They're studying it. I can tell you, if I'm president, we are not doing a central bank digital currency. I think that would be a huge, huge imposition on people's financial freedoms. And
really, people doing things that they want is an imposition on others' freedoms? Fascinating. Okay.
Financial privacy. And oh, by the way, what would the logical result of this be? If the central authority has oversight over this, of course they're going to start imposing ESG criteria. Oh, wait a minute.
I assume ESG, I should have looked this up already. I assume ESG is it's like CRT or DEI, Department of Equity and Inclusion all over again. I'm assuming that's what they're talking about when they say ESG.
You filled up your gas tank.
Not to be confused with MSG, the non-Department of Non-Inclusion and Equity.
3 times this week. You can't do any more.
Sorry, let me step back.
Wait a minute. You filled up your gas tank 3 times this week. You can't do any more. The sky of how they would be able to manipulate this. So I see it as a massive transfer of power from individual consumers to a central authority. And I don't think that that's good for a free society. So I'm a no on central bank digital currency.
Okay, I don't think anyone is in favor of that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, Governor, I want to thank you for the time. We could go for hours here, but I know you only had an hour and we've gone over that. So I want to be respectful of your time. I know there's so many people who want to ask questions, and
we should do it again. I mean, I think it was fun. I think this is great. And we'll make sure that that we come back and do it again. This is a great platform. I mean, I would like to see other platforms going in the same direction, but a healthy democratic society needs the robust debate. So I just want to thank everybody.
Wow, suddenly he's in favor of the free flow of information, debate, people talking about stuff. What a change in tune.
For listening in, and I'll just make that pitch again. We want you on the team. We'd love for you to go to rondesantis.com and make a donation.
Okay, sounds like he's just shouting out his donations and things and stuff. Absolutely absurd, man. Seriously, give me a break. This dude is terrible in just about every way. Disgusting how he acts. The things that he says, the things he does. He's terrible. Anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comments. This whole thing was a disaster, seems to me.